Welcome to Tippcast by the Nina Guardian. Hello and welcome to Tippcast. Myself, Shane Stapleton. Shane Brophy isn't available this week, so Eoin Brislane, Toomevara, hurling manager, has decided to join us. How are you doing, Eoin? You keeping well?
Oh, good, Shane. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Look, we said we'd jump straight... Well, actually, before we jump straight into the games, can I just ask you about your own experience in managing this year? I mean, I saw a couple of your games and, like, you know, some performances went the way you want. Obviously, I think the red card played a big part in terms of, like, the final scoreline against Mullinahone the last day out. But how do you reflect on the season?
Yeah, kind of a mixed bag, I suppose. We were a bit inconsistent. We started well against Silver Mines, had a good win there, and then we had a big downer against Kiladangan, which kind of put us back a good bit, you know. And it came out of nowhere, really, to be honest. Yeah, it was, guys, I'd say, it kind of the COVID nearly backfired on us because we went into that game, everything got we had a really good lead into it with league and beating Kiladangan in the league and beating Lockmore in the league, and we were actually showing a bit of form. Brislane only bet by a couple of points, kind of a good game. And then I say we went into Holy Cross and child matches or into Silver Mines the game, and that was going well, and we were kind of looking forward into the Kiladangan match. But then the news broke to Kiladangan are missing 3 of their top players, and I suppose the team that we are at the moment is we kind of like the underdog tag, and we seem to perform better like that. So then when they were missing the 3, I suppose the expectations kind of built on top of us then, and we just didn't show up. We didn't perform. It was kind of like we were shackled up, like so. But then we got back. We had a good honest meeting then the following week, and we kind of got back down to it, and we had a kind of a pressure game then against Holy Cross in the first round. And as a game, we they're missing Brian O'Mara, so like he was a big loss for them, obviously. So we went into the game and just confidence a bit low, but we went 12 points up, and then they brought it back to 2, and we ended up winning by 5. So we kind of fell over the line there. We didn't really win that game, really. Just halfway, we kind of fell over. But then into the Clonoulty match then, and again, Clonoulty would have been seen as a team that would be favourites in that game, and we performed well and we worked hard, and we were very happy with that performance, really, to be honest. Yeah. So 2 games played, 2 games win. You'd be saying, right, we're going the right track. Kevin McCarthy was coming back from a broken thumb. He hadn't played yet. Kenny Ryan hadn't played yet. So we were kind of we were hoping to have Kevin back maybe for some part of the Mullinahone match, and the same with Kenny. And so, but listen, went into the Mullinahone match, we just didn't turn up. We just and like training went well. It wasn't complacency. Lads weren't complacent. We knew Mullinahone historically would always been tough games. Like even 3 years ago down in Cashel in a relegation, in a kind of a playoff game, it was a very, very tight 2-1 at the death. So there was no such thing as, we win this and we'll top the group and happy days. No, but and you're saying the red card. The red card had an effect, but we weren't playing well up to that either, and we weren't at the pitch of the game. So like. We were very concerned leading into that, and it was just that we didn't just show up on the day as a group. And when you in the current championship, Shane, the way it is that there's no real weak teams. It's a very good championship. It's not going back years ago, like you remember this, like you 32 teams and there was a lot of dead rubber games, and like whereas now it's a really competitive championship, and when winners plays winners, then it makes it even more competitive. So listen, come here. We've no excuses. We knew the situation. Went to that game. We didn't perform, and you're out of the championship. Game over.
Is it a tough job managing a team with games coming that thick and fast? I know there's a 2-week break, so maybe that's not too bad, but just it must feel like fairly all-consuming.
Yeah, it is. Well, I actually prefer this format compared to playing a round or 2 in April. You're getting ready January, February, March in the muck and rain, and then you're trying to get ready for a championship in April, and you're playing 1 or 2 matches. Then you're stopping then for maybe May, and then you're trying to peak again for maybe August, September. At least this way, you're playing in August, depending on tip, and you're playing every 2 weeks. So I actually don't mind that, because listen, at the end of the day, players want games, and every 2 weeks is ideal. I think you get a week's break, you're back in again. It gives you a chance to go over a couple of knocks. No, I actually like this format. I think it's very competitive, and it just obviously the start of the year we just didn't know when it was going to happen, or you had no access to gyms, you had no access to players really till kind of May time. But listen, we still had lots of time to prepare,
Yeah, and just in terms of the quarterfinals coming this weekend, we'll start off with Lockmore against Kiladangan McDonagh. So Kiladangan were very impressive, topping a group that included Burris Lee, Nina, and Ross Gray. And I'd imagine they played the last day without both Niall O'Mara and Cian Darcy, who was suspended. So we'll see how Niall O'Mara is for that clash. Lockmore beat Brackens the last day out. Like Brackens, again, they've proven that they're a very good team and they've adapted to the top level very, very quickly. But they came through the group that also had Kiladangan and McCarthy Burris. Like, this should be an excellent game.
Yeah, this, I think, is a real 50-50 game. It's very hard to call this game now. We actually had both them teams in our league, right? But again, Lockmore are typical Lockmore. They could be missing 12 players in the league and competing by 15 points, and suddenly they're still in the county final at the end of the year, you know. Kiladangan are similar. Like Kiladangan, we beat them well, but they have another player back there as well. Dara Peters is back from America as well, and he's going to be a big shove on, you know what I mean? So, like you've, like Cian Darcy, Niall O'Mara, like Jerry Cahill, to me, is probably one of the finest club hurlers in Tipperary, and we really need him back in that tip panel because he has that energy, he has that footwork, you know what I mean? And Tip are really lacking that, like, and Seamus Hennessy up front, like he scored 1-3 last day. So, like, what I seen in the league, they've really upped their game. They've Burris Lee, Ross Gray, and Nina was the group of death at the start of the year. They came through on top of that group, so it's no fluke. They're there. They're a team that have probably 8 or 9 county players mixed through to play a county at different levels. So like they won't fear Lockmore at all, and the atmosphere seems to be very good down there. Like they seem to kind of, I suppose, I was talking to Christy Morgan that, like, he was saying that the attitude they're taking this year is kind of hurl with freedom, and that's what they're doing. They're really hurling with freedom, and they're kind of, it suits them, and they're playing very, very well, and they're playing a nice brand of hurling. But then you have Lockmore, and Lockmore, I suppose, they didn't, of all teams going, probably didn't need a preliminary round against Killinall last weekend. But listen, they're just an incredible club. They just can turn out week after week, hurling football. Lee McGrath's home from Australia. He's a big shove on to them. I think Hennessy, a fullback, could be carrying a knock, and they might have a couple of injury things. But like, you just can't write off Lockmore. They're one of those clubs. They're sitting at the top table now for the last 20 years, and they're there consistently. That's one game I'm going to sit in defence in this one because I just can't call it.
Yeah, that's a serious half back line that Lockmore have. Just watching them against Killinall, and Killinall were a nice bit off them. I can't remember what the final score was, but there was a fair bit between them. And, you know, the two McGraths got the goals, if I remember correctly. But like that half back line of John Ryan, of John Maher, and then the other side, Brian McGrath as well. I mean, if Kiladangan can get a bit of joy off that, well, they'll need to be able to if they're going to win this game. Yeah,
they're going to have to open them up, and they're going to have to use their pace. And with Cian Darcy and Jerry and them, and then as like they have that in their locker. Kiladangan, and the Cleary's there as well. So they're really going to have to move Lockmore around. If you stand in beside Lockmore and try and fight with them, that's not the way to be Lockmore, because they're relishing that. Like, so. No, it's listen, Lockmore, the two McGraths and John and Noah. Like, John seems to be actually a guy that's on a mission this year. He had a really good inter-county season. We didn't see much of him, but in club form, he's man of the match again the last day. So, like, he seems to be really after freshening up and really in good form, you know.
Yeah, and then Noel, I mean, he obviously looked very tired playing for Tipperary in 2020, you know, in November and December after playing for so many weeks with Lockmore. And then it didn't happen for Tip overall this year anyway. So do you think he's got that point to prove as well? And like I think he's touched 30 there in the last while as well, determined to prove that, like, it's not a case of too many miles on the clock for him.
Yeah, he's a smart player, isn't he? Like, I don't think Noel McGrath has anything to prove to anybody, but like, he's just really a smart player. And like, if you give, he'll always find space, and he'll always pick the right pass, and like, he's probably one of the best hands in the business, like, you know what I mean, in club hurling Tipperary. And but I'd say, like, I think we went 14 weeks last year, last campaign in a row. Like, that's animal stuff. Like, you know what I mean, you just can't. It's so hard to keep turning it out week after week. But I just think the breaks now will with Tip and that will suit them, and they just seem to be a bit fresher, is probably the word we're looking for there. And if you're meeting a fresh Lockmore, that can be a dangerous animal, I'd say, you know.
Would you find when you're playing teams like Lockmore and JK Brackens, I'm not sure how many times you've managed against either of them teams, but like teams that are very much dual clubs. Do you find that there's more of a football influence in terms of like how they hold on to the ball?
Yeah, like absolutely. Well, even going back playing against Lockmore, it was the one team that we would have always had dreaded and we got out of jail there numerous times with draws and replays and like what would have caught them a couple of times against us was they might draw against us on a Sunday, and next thing they're playing Wednesday football and they're playing you again the following Saturday. But the one thing about them was, and you're right in saying that, is their contact, their movement off the shoulder, and their physical strength in the challenge. Like that's the big thing. But their movement off the shoulder is probably, and you know yourselves, the game of hurling has gone nearly like football style, like working the ball out of the fence, crowding the fence, breaking it down, working it out, short pass, delivering to space. So it's Paul Kinnerk a lot to answer for that now, but it's that's the way the game has gone, and it kind of suits a lot more style, you know.
So watching Niall O'Mara playing in I can't remember, was it the county semi-final or the North semi-final or final? He was playing full back against Kiladangan one of the days, and then we've seen him in the forward line with Tipperary. You could imagine him in the half back line. Where do you think you play him? Like, because obviously they have to juggle pieces at club level. You don't have inter-county standard lads in every position, so you want to try and have him where it's most important. What would you do with Niall O'Mara, assuming he's fully fit?
Yeah, see, I suppose. Listen, I think either a 6 or 11, I suppose, is the obvious choice for me there for Niall O'Mara in central positions. Like, depending on who you're playing, depending what you want. Like, but they have I suppose they're playing Jerry Cahill up in the forwards now as well, so they're kind of they're trying to balance their team. Cian O'Kelly is a big shove on now, so like with Cian O'Kelly, who's a ball winner, who could carry that ball, very similar to Niall. So now they can afford to drop Niall a little bit further back. Dara Peters coming back into the fray now would be another guy that can play in defence or play in attack. But I'd say Dara might come back into defence and again allow maybe Niall to shove up the field. But it's Niall O'Mara to me is either 6 or 11. He's a super player. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for inter-county either. I think he's he's rocked with injuries a good bit, like, so he was unfortunate about it, but he's really effective player when he's playing with Tipperary and with his club. You know, he's a really solid guy. You know, so I suppose if I was looking at him, it'd probably be 11. And
I suppose a lot of people would have looked at Killarwan and wonder why they haven't, collected a county title at this stage, and maybe somewhat injuries. I mean, Seamus Hennessy's obviously had injuries over the years. Buggy O'Mara obviously wasn't always available over the years. Are you surprised that they haven't quite made it as a county winner at this stage?
I suppose I am, and it's just they're a really good side, right? But I suppose what you're compared against, like, they come up against a real strong Thurles team, and they managed to beat Thurles a couple of times. They actually were Thurles in his bogey team, but then, like, Lockmore, like Tipperary Club Championship, when you're looking at it and you compare to the top counties around, like Limerick and that, most other counties have one or two real strong teams. We're lucky enough in Tipperary to have probably 6. Right, that 4 to 6 teams every year that are competitive. Like, you look at Lockmore, you look at Kiladangan, you look at Borsalee. Do you know what I mean? These are really strong outfits. Like Killarwan, you throw them in there. Like, it's easy to say they should have won one, but it's so hard to win a county championship in Tipperary at the moment because it's so competitive. And then you see as well, depending on what time, like, Killarwan probably have a team that are more suited to top of the ground, fast ball, like do you know what I mean, moving the ball quick. Whereas you come up against like a strong, more physical team like Borsalee, they'll probably struggle there. As far as the year goes on, it'll be interesting to see how it goes with them.
And do you have any thoughts on why tip club teams like Burris got to the final there in 2020, but why tip club teams haven't really pushed too far in terms of, like, I know Thurles got one there, but like haven't won too many Munster titles in recent years.
Yeah, well, obviously Borsalee won one. Yeah. They're actually current Munster champions.
You think I'd remember that?
Yeah. So, but like outside of that, I suppose it's again you're looking at there. Borsalee, before Borsalee was Thurles mainly, and I suppose that Lockmore, I think, won, didn't they? But like Thurles, I suppose, again, they're a group of players. They have Roland, they have Paddy, they have strong backs. But when you get into their forward line, they're really good hurlers. Aidan McCormack, these boys, Stephen Cahill, but they're light. And club hurling is very different in September, October, November, December, and too well we know it. And like, the thing about it is that you really need. That's when you really need your more physical player that will win that dirty ball. The ball is sticking. It's not moving as quick. You're not moving the ball through the lines as fast. You might meet a team that's you're not maybe teams. Tip teams have the luxury of playing in Thurles in quarterfinal, semi-final, final. Next thing, suddenly you're down in playing Ballygunner in Walsh Park, and it's the ground. The ball is not moving as quick. It's heavy ground. It's heavy underfoot. It's a different ball game altogether. Like, and it just, I suppose, it's the experience of that is what tells, you know.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump on to Kiladangan, because Kiladangan obviously missed out on the opportunity of playing in Munster last year. It would have been very, very interesting to see how they would have got on. They'll be heavy favourites to beat Upperchurch, but I just had to say, I was watching the stream of Upperchurch when they lost to Thurles their last day out, and if they lost by 10, they were through. Then Ronan Maher puts one over from 100 yards, they're down by 11, but then Paul Ryan scores a brilliant free from the sideline, as if there was no pressure on him at all.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, they might be coming in with a bounce in their step, despite losing by 10 points.
Yeah, and I was at a match a few years ago over in Dala when Upperchurch beat Kiladangan, and like, the one thing about Upperchurch, like, we played them last year in Thurles and we drew them as well after the Bursley match, and like, the Paddy Green scored 2-8 from play against from an inch. Like, they've James Barry's back now, Gavin Ryan, Kira, they have a lovely sprinkle of players through it. They're a very committed team and very fit, right? The one thing I'd say about Kiladangan is Kiladangan this year aren't doing anything traumatic or like, they're not beating teams by 10 or 15 points. JK Brackens, McCarthy Burris, Lockmore by a point, Kilawan in the North Championship. They're just doing enough, right? And to me, it's a real good sign of a team that none of their forwards are really shining out as being the star man, but they're still a different player each day. Sean Hayes today, Billy Seymour tomorrow. It's do you know what I mean? Joe Gallagher was a bit injured there, taken off in the North. Like, they have numbers. They have a really solid panel of players, right? To pick from. They have a system of play that they have for the last 4 or 5 years. They know the system. They're very comfortable playing it. But the one thing about them is Upperchurch will play in their faces, right? And I suppose in Thurles it's harder to do that. If this was in say, Neen or Dollar or a Rag, I'd be even giving Upperchurch a bigger chance. But I suppose, listen, you'd have to fancy Kiladangan. But you're right. This will be an interesting game. If Upperchurch can stay with them for a long period of that game, and maybe bring it into the last water break, it'll be an interesting finish. But listen, you'd have to fancy Kiladangan here.
Yeah, I've watched plenty of their games this year, and I wonder, like, you know, when you were winning so consistently with Toomevara, do they have that whole thing of, you know, when it comes into the last 5-10 minutes of the game, just that belief because you've gotten through so many tight games that you get there? Like, I've definitely found that with Kula over the years.
Yeah.
But is that something that's, like, can you explain that phenomenon to maybe people who haven't been there?
Well, listen, you look at the club in Kiladangan at the moment, and like, you see it above in Kula, we see it in Toomevara. When the club is going well and it's winning, suddenly every team starts to win, and the teams that shouldn't win start to win. So they played Junior B in our final last Sunday in Toomevara against Silvermines. There were 6 points down with 30 minutes to go and won the game in extra time, right? They were under 19 champions this year. They won the senior league. They won they won the North Championship, North Senior Championship. But there's no, like, they have huge numbers down there. They have 2 senior teams. I suppose the whole around there is that they're in that winning culture. And when you're in that zone and in that winning culture, it just seems to be a tidal wave that it just stay moving forward. And like, it's when you get down to that last 5 or 6 minutes, it's just about that belief that we're going to win this. You never seem to panic that other teams that nearly, I suppose the best way to explain it, some teams when they get to the finish line are nearly afraid to win and they stop. Whereas when you're used to winning, I suppose, and even if you're down 3 or 4 points, you just believe you're going to win. That's just the difference. And it's very hard to get that winning culture into players, you know.
And to shoot off in a slightly different topic or different direction, Darragh Egan taking over with Wexford. How do you think he'll do?
I think he'll do very well. I think he's a huge loss to Tipperary. I don't think Tipperary. I think we made a big mistake letting him go. I would have said like he's probably one of the top coaches for the modern era game in Tipperary. Look at Kiladangan. I know he's a big influence down there. I know he's talking out in that, but he's more than that. He's around the lines. He's doing coaching the field. I think he's a huge loss to Tipperary. But from a Wexford point of view, young coach going in after Davy, from him. Okay, people say going in for Davy, it's high risk, and are they burnt out? But Wexford had the last 2 seasons were very poor. But Dara is a very good manager. He's very, very good to get on with players. He'll get the best out of them, and he's a real forward-thinking coach, a modern coach. He'll do well.
And can you imagine them playing a little bit differently? I mean, we saw at times last year, Wexford mightn't have anyone inside the far 45, and you're wondering who can a player out the field hit the ball into.
Yeah, I think they'll be way more offensive. Dave will go mad here saying that because he feels that he's very offensive. They all attack, but I suppose I'd say he'd be going more of a style of 2 inside and maybe bringing one out, this kind of stuff, and leaving someone inside all the time, or at least 2 inside all the time, and creating space and moving and that. But he'll have to change something up. He'll need new faces in there. They are going to be stale. Like they did need a change. But like I say, they're in Leinster, so like the thing about it is they could easily get to a Leinster final and possibly win a Leinster championship. Like Wexford would fancy them. Like they have the upper hand in Kilkenny there a bit, like, and they wouldn't be afraid of Galway or Dublin, like. So like, it's an easier route to an All-Ireland series than Munster of Leinster at the moment.
Geez, no doubt about it. There'll be teams that'll be knocked out of Munster next year that could arguably win Leinster.
Absolutely. It's like, if you win one game, you could be in the Leinster final, and next thing could be in the Ireland semi-final. Do you know what I mean? So
it's true. A question then, as a manager, like sometimes, so we're talking about what Davy's trying and what Dara tries and all that kind of stuff. Can there be resistance when you try to change? Like traditionally it's 3 inside and drive the ball long from the pockets, and when you're trying to change from an old way, as in, like, let's say you went long ball with 2 for years. Geez, that worked for us before. Why wouldn't it work us now? There's too much messing with the ball or whatever. There must be a lot of resistance to that. And how do you even sort of combat that? Because you want people on side.
It's a daily battle, I can tell you. And you can start with your family first, I suppose. They're the first ones in your ear giving out to you. But it is. And come here, I suppose everybody's kind of getting bogged down the short game and the whole lot. I suppose what most coaches are trying to coach now is that players, your goalkeeper is your key player now. So what you're trying to coach now is that if it's on to go short, give a short. The player receiving it has to be able to deal with it comfortably, to know what to do next. If it's on to the midfield or half back line, you give it. But also you're coaching that if you have a ball winner up front, or you can create space in front of your half forward line, that the goalie gives it there as well. So like I've been very much of the style of whatever that your team should be very comfortable playing all aspects of the game, and short, medium, long. But again, it depends what you have. Like if you have the comfort of having Conor Kenny, Niall Kenny, and Jerry Kelly in a half forward line, well, like there's so much point hitting too many balls to a corner back. Do you know what I mean? So you have that luxury of ball winners. But if you're a forward line that's a small, light forward line and they need space, but then you have to come up with other ideas, But to answer your question, yes, there is loads of resistance to going to a short game. The traditionalists like going direct, and I can totally understand that 100%. We all love the ball flying up and down the field, and all the rest. But like, I suppose you have to tailor the suit. Simple as that,
If you were Upper Church Drumban coming into this game, what would you be looking to do to try and stop Kiladangan? Because this is something that's often trot out, that they don't necessarily have a star inter-county player, but they've plenty of panelists, but they're just a very even team.
Yeah, well, the one thing about Kiladangan is you have to go man to man. It's as simple as that. If you leave their half forward line, drift back down the field and pick up loose ball, they'll cut you asunder. They'll just open you up. And we learned that the hard way this year in Cloughjordan. And like, you just have to shove up on them. You have to go man to man. That's the one thing. And like, you have to be willing at times to leave with 4 defenders in your back line. If you go with a sweeper at the back and you give a ball to one of the Flynns or David Sweeney, and they walk the ball to the middle of the field, Willie Connors or Gallagher or Ty Gallagher will pop over the back. Like you have to go toe to toe to Kiladangan. It's as simple as that. And if you go toe to toe them and you're able to stick with them long enough, then you have a chance. But that's a big if. Do you know what I mean? They are very comfortable on the ball, especially this time of year inside in Thurles, dry ball, dry weather. Their movement is incredible. They're constantly looking to cross the ball across the field, not alone laterally as well as, do you know what I mean? So they're very, very, as I said to you, to have a system, they're well used to it, and they're very, very comfortable playing that system. Do you know what I mean? And I said to you, they'll go long, they'll pump that ball long, right down. What they'll actually do is bring their half forward out, and they'll actually try and pump the ball right into the corner forwards, into like Stanamara, into like Billy Seymour, who are very comfortable in their own ball. And then you'll have Sean Hayes coming like a train from the half forward line to take it off them, you know. So it's you have to go toe to toe. Simple as that.
You'd have to be leaning towards Kiladangan for this one, wouldn't you?
You have to lean to, yeah, absolutely.
What about Bursley against Mullinahone here? Because, you know, I'm not sure that too many people would have thought Mullinahone would have won the group that they were in there, and just to go through it. I mean, obviously yourselves were in it, Clonolty came through as well, and Holy Cross. Like Mullinahone coming up from the Seamus O'Reen, certainly not everyone would have been looking at them. And did even think Paul Curran, or, you know, himself and Owen Kelly, they've been on the road 20 years at this stage, and maybe a little bit more, that a team with that, you know, couldn't be getting through a group. And yet here they are, and obviously they put up a nice scoreline the last day against G.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're after having a fantastic year. So they qualified out of the group. Everybody would have expected, when I was at this start of the year, everybody expected Clonolty to top that group, and it was a toss of coin between ourselves, Mullinahone and Holy Cross. That's bottom line, because all them three teams would have fancied themselves to beat each other. That's just the way it was. And so, come here. The one thing I noticed about Mullinahone, we were playing them, was their unbelievable togetherness of a team. They're so united. Owen Kelly's coming out to the half forward line. He's like the Messiah out there. He's orchestrating everything. Lads are listening to him. Lads are finding the ball. He's passing off. They work incredibly hard for each other. They probably know their limitations, right? Paul Curran is 40. Owen Kelly's 40 in January, but they still have the likes of Shawnee Curran, Alan Curran. They have Mikey O'Shea, who's a really good under-20 player that can score. Micheál Dunn. They have a sprinkle of players around the place. Like Owen Fenley, a centre back, is a good solid centre back. But as I said to you, they're a solid unit. Bursley, I'll be honest with you, I think as current year goes on, and maybe the weather starts to turn and starts getting to really kind of winter hurling, I kind of fancy Bursley to win this county championship. I think they have a nice mix blend of kind of senior players of Brendan and Dan, the two Kennys, Jerry Kelly, and now after introducing them, say JD, Kevin Maher, and now Eddie Ryan, and like they have a really nice mix of players, and as I say, like you talk about half back lines, like look at the three McCormicks, like that's as strong a half back line as you get in club hurling. I think with Sean, Ray, and Dan. So like Mullinahone, I wish them all the best in it, but like you'd have to fancy Bursley. On paper, you'd say, listen, Bursley are way too strong for them. But the one thing about Mullinahone is they'll have no fear, there'll be no pressure on them whatsoever, and they'll give it an almighty go. But I just think that Bursley will have too much to thank for them, you know?
Yeah, and like Jack Shelley scored 2-5 the last day.
Yeah,
Mikey O'Shea, I remember Mikey O'Shea winning frees towards the end of the game as well, so he kept running. Like Jack Shelley scoring 2-5, like obviously Bursley would be putting a bit of an emphasis on him. And if you're talking about Owen Kelly playing centre forward, obviously the idea is that the centre back likes to sit and sweep and he'll drift off him. Like, do you go and mark him, or do you just hope that your numbers around the middle swallow him up?
Yeah, well, listen, you have to. That's what he kind of does. He kind of drifts out, and maybe he might go back in full forward and come out again. Like you have to follow him. Simple as that. Like you don't leave a player the caliber of Kelly just drift around the field aimlessly. Like you have to follow him. But himself and Jack Shelley work very well, and they kind of swap in and swap out. And like Jack Shelley's a player now that was kind of tipped to be a real good prospect. Tipperary. He had a couple of crucial ligament injuries after minor and that, which really set him back. But listen, Bursley, but tend to play with a sweeper. The kind of Dan and Brendan tend to swap in and out a bit, and they kind of fill that area of bodies as well. So I'd expect that Jack and Owen won't get the same room as they definitely won't get the same room they got against us. And but it's up front. I would think that Bursley will have the power with like JD and Eddie Ryan and the two Kennys and Jerry. I think that's where Mullinahone could struggle.
Yeah, I think Burris, when they went with both Connor and Niall Kenny in the full forward line, it was around that time that Barry Heffernan had to go from what looked to me, watching on TV, from the centre back to the full back area. What sort of a nightmare is it to try and, curb two lads who are 6'4" and 6'7", give or take?
Yeah, we played Bursley last year in the first round in Nina, and you're trying to match up lads that have the physicality and the hurling, because both of them, they're both very physical players, but both can play. Obviously, Connor is probably a better hurler, but Niall is very effective because Niall gets the ball, he wants to go forward with it, and he just draws in bodies, and then he creates so much room for lads around him. He's a different type player. They're hard managed. They're very, as such as they're a dream to have up front, because when their backs are under pressure in a tight game, you're not looking for space. You can just launch the ball off the field, and they'll more times than not win it, or at least break it, which is huge. As I said, we keep referring back to it when it gets into the winter hurling. That's where I think the Bursley advantage is going to come later on.
And are you going to go for the club side where you went to school, Bursley?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. Wore the jersey a few times, or actually a few football jerseys, football medals too, which is
it's a rare thing down there. Just breaking up there for a second. Hopefully you can come back in there. Can you hear me okay, Owen? It's just breaking up there for a second. Hopefully that comes right there. Yeah. Owen, do you want to drop off the call and jump back on? You know yourselves, folks, you're doing things live. Sometimes it can go right and sometimes it can go wrong. And you just while waiting for Owen to come back on there. Thurles are going to be against Clonolty in the final game. So Thurles, the last day out, as I kind of mentioned earlier, had won by 10 points the last day out against Upperchurch Stromban, 324 to 120. Plenty of players impressing there as ever. Ronan Maher, centre back. Paddy Maher's in there, full back. Paddy Creedon is an addition in the forward line this year. Good young player. Then you also have the likes of Pa Burke. He found the net there the last day. Obviously, he's been doing it for years for Thurles Sarsfields. And up against them, as I said, Clonolty Rossmore, just to recap on their result the last day. They beat Holy Cross Ballycahill 122 to 314. So a flurry of late points got them through the group there at that stage. So I'm not entirely sure if we have Owen coming back in or not. I'll just check to see if he's... no, I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be able to get back through. Maybe his reception has gone him a little bit. But also just to look at some of the Seamus O'Reen games that are going to be on as well. Templederry, they're going to play Gertlehook Glengool. Clonakilty are up against Cashel King Cormac's Kilnall, obviously lost last weekend to Lockmore. And then Thurles Sarsfields B, they're against St. Mary's. So I might just hold on another couple of seconds. Not sure what I'll talk about while I'm trying to hold on. But I'm not sure if Owen is going to be able to get back on. So might just finish it up there, pull up a little bit early if that's the case. So because I'll run out of stuff to talk about on my own. So that's it for Tippcast, and we'll be back again next week. Welcome to Tippcast by the Nina Guardian.